in your bank account that you can do whatever you like with. Take a year off and keep it to yourself. You don't even need to tell the taxman, as it's totally tax-free. For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 25th of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and tonight on the show I'm joined by author Emma Wolfe. She's going head-to-head with former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Also got TV personality Ingrid Tarrant and top British comedian Paul Cox. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening, I'm Mark White. The main headlines from the GB News Centre. The Prime Minister will no longer accept donations for clothing after the row over gifts. Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner have also announced they will take the same approach moving forward. The move comes as Labour seeks to move on from the row over the Prime Minister and his wife's acceptance of gifts, including clothing, from prominent Labour donor and peer Lord Ali. Sir Keir has accepted around £39,000 from Lord Ali since December 2019. GB News has learnt that Donald Trump has given Nigel Farage some key advice as the Reform leader bids to improve his party's chances at the next election. Mr Farage was speaking to our political editor, Christopher Hope, after his keynote speech at the party's annual conference in Birmingham. The Reform leader had spoken to Donald Trump in the days after a second assassination attempt on the former president. And that advice to Nigel Farage apparently was just be yourself. Well, one of Mohammed Al Fayed's alleged victims has said the billionaire businessman was highly manipulative. A survivors' news conference heard the former Harrods owner described as a monster enabled by a system that pervaded the business. One lawyer said the case combined some of the most horrific elements of the Jimmy Savile, Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein abuse scandals. The Hezbollah terror group has suffered another major blow after one of its most senior commanders was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Ibrahim Akil is reported to have died when warplanes struck the building he was in earlier today in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Security sources said he was killed alongside members of Hezbollah's elite Radwan unit as they were holding a meeting. Throughout the day, more than 140 rockets were fired by Hezbollah fighters into northern Israel. The barrage started a number of fires when some rockets landed in open areas of the Israeli countryside. 4 members of staff at a Welsh prison have been arrested on suspicion of assault and misconduct in public office. South Wales Police arrested the 4, who all work at HMP Park in Bridgend, following a series of incidents at the prison. The police have not said what the incidents relate to, but 13 inmates are known to have died at the G4S-run jail so far this year. And those are your headlines. You're right up to date. Now back to Lee Anderson.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield. And joining me on tonight's show, I've got the very lovely author, Emma Wolf, and his bag. He is the political nuisance of the year, as voted for by me. That is Matthew Larser, but a firm favourite of my mother's. But Matthew, we're going to come to you first, because you're...
Loved your mum as always.
Yeah, but you're an ex-Labour Party advisor. And Sir Keir Starmer accepting gifts, £100,000. Is he now the UK's #1 scrounger?
No, I don't think. I mean, all MPs, or most MPs.
We're talking about Sir Keir Starmer.
Hospitality, and Keir has taken his fair share. It's fair to say, most of which have come from a Labour member of 30 years standing, a Labour donor, and a Labour peer in Lord Wahid Ali, who's an active supporter of the Labour Party. He's knocked on doors to the Labour Party, just like you and I used to do together, Lee. I have to get it in every time. And the key thing is that they've all been declared. And this week we saw the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards say there was no case to answer. So it's a storm in a teacup.
Storm in a teacup, Emma.
I can't decide which I like more, Free Gear Keir or King of the Cadgers.
Or the Keir Starmer, the Granny Harmer. What about that one?
Yeah, no, that's not funny though, is it?
No, it's not funny.
None of this is funny, actually. And Matthew's wrong when he says that Starmer's taken his fair share. He has taken 2.5 times more freebies than the next MP down, who I believe is Lucy Powell. He has been raking it in. The thing is that I really genuinely don't get, Lee, is that Starmer doesn't need any of this. He doesn't need to take freebies. He's not struggling on the breadline. He's certainly not going to be worrying about his fuel bills. He doesn't need thousands of pounds of clothing for his wife. He doesn't need free glasses. He doesn't need accommodation paid for. He's been football tickets, concert tickets. What is all this really about? I think people are actually quite shocked. And I'm not a Labour Party supporter, but I was kind of expecting a bit better from them. We got so used to hearing 14 years of Tory sleaze. And I apologise to you, you were a former Tory MP.
That's fine by me.
But it became a catchphrase, Tory sleaze. And everybody has seen the footage of Keir Starmer, day one, standing outside number 10 and vowing to clean up Parliament. And now we find out that he is actually more grubby and more scroungy and more of a freeloader than all of the rest of them. And I'm genuinely shocked.
Matthew, why is it, for people watching this show, can you explain why Sir Keir's snout is firmly in the trough?
Well, as I say, lots of MPs
Again, we're talking about Sir Keir.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if I ask you who took ringside seats for Derek Chisora versus Joe Joyce worth £2,000, who would it be? In that case, it's not Keir Starmer, it's your party leader,
But he's not
Nigel
the Prime
Farage.
Minister who made this pledge on the steps of Downing Street.
I think that all these donations...
Can you not see the hypocrisy, Matthew?
I think all these things were taken before he was Prime Minister. That's my understanding anyway.
Matthew, there's a really, really important question at the heart of this. The Prime Minister has immense influence. What is Lord Ali getting in return? What is he getting in return?
Nothing.
He's
he's
nothing.
He's been a Labour supporter for 30 years. He's very actively involved with all levels of the Labour Party. For example, he's very close to an MP called Siobhan McDonough. It's fully declared.
Why was he giving
when her sister was dying, who was the former General Secretary of the party. He's a friend in every sense of the Labour Party, and he wants the Labour Party to succeed. As a former TV executive,
Matthew, why does he have access still, even though the past has been revoked? Why does he still have access to number 10? Why is he throwing a birthday party for Bridget Phillipson? What is going on here? Why is he getting involved in the domestic affairs of someone's clothing, someone's glasses?
Not the domestic affairs. What I was trying to say,
someone's wife's personal shopper. Say what you like about Norma Major, Sherry Blair, Sarah Brown, all of the previous PM's wives, but if you look in the papers today, you will see they dress themselves. They bought nice designer clothes, or they rented clothes. Like
Cherie certainly had a. She had a personal stylist. I mean, look, the question.
Paid for by herself.
To answer your question directly, Emma, the reason that why he wanted to spend clothes is he would spend the money on clothes is he is a former TV executive. He knows, for example, one of the reasons the glasses is because he wanted the thinnest possible lenses. Because then they look better on TV.
I can't believe
because sadly we live in a TV age.
So pay for it yourself.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer is a former DPP. He's got millions of pounds in terms of his pension. He was years as a very, very high-earning barrister. He's now the Prime Minister. He's now the Prime Minister on 166,000, just outpaid by his Chief of Staff, bizarrely.
He wasn't the Prime Minister on 166,000.
Who's the paymaster here? Sue Gray or him? Anyway, she's on 170. So he can't afford to pay for a pair of glasses. What is going on?
Actually, Matthew, I'm just going to come back on what Emma's just said about Sue Gray. She just had a pay rise. She's now on 170 grand, about 3 or 4 grand.
Gave herself a pay rise.
Yeah, herself a pay rise. She's now more on the earning more money than the Prime Minister. When you're taking 300 quid off pensioners, who want to heat their homes, and you're giving one of your busy mates a pay rise, that's wrong, surely.
Look, I think it's a slightly odd situation where she's paid just above what the Prime Minister's paid. We've seen people in government paid a lot more than that when they've come in from industry with specific skills. I personally think that there should be a rule where the Prime Minister's pay is the top of the tree, because the Prime Minister, whatever party they're from, is the person where the buck ultimately stops. But she is a senior civil servant, and I think that permanent secretaries and departments get more than the Prime Minister. So therefore, why shouldn't the head of the whole civil service?
Is she a Labour voter?
Who's the special advisor here? Who is the special advisor?
Exactly.
Is it Starmer or is it Sue Gray? Because she cut the salaries of... There's a lot of anger inside Number 10. She cut the salaries of other special advisors, and she was the one who decided to raise
Emma, this is socialism.
That pay bracket from 140 to 180. I mean, these are eye-watering sums. And Lee, let's get back to the reality. They have just cut £300 from people who will be sitting huddled in a blanket in one room. That maybe sounds dramatic, but that is the truth of what pensioners are facing this winter. It's absolutely disgusting. Thousands of pounds on a pair of glasses. Give me a break.
Well, I don't think there's a direct correlation between, the Wahid Ali's donation to pay for suits and glasses and the winter fuel allowance, where let's remind ourselves that the poorest pensioners will still get the winter fuel allowance. And one of the good things about this has been that tens of thousands of more
good things
let me finish, please, who are entitled to pension credit are now applying for it and will get support that's worth a lot more than the winter fuel allowance, and they deserve it.
Let me give you some simple mathematics, Matthew, that even those on the left will understand. There's about 800,000 people in this country not claiming pension credits. If all of those all of a sudden claim pension credits, which then passports them to the winter fuel allowance and council tax support and other bits and bobs, that will be probably twice as much money costing the Treasury and the taxpayer as what they save by the winter fuel allowance. So it makes it a nonsense, Matthew.
They deserve that. They deserve that help, and I would encourage every pensioner who thinks that they might be entitled to look into it and see if they can get pension credit.
And Matthew, what about the pensioners who are just over the threshold, 11, 12, 13,000 pounds a year? You think they can afford it? Well, they can't, and their energy bills are absolutely spiralling. And actually, this is about real people. This is about people like my mum who don't know how to go online and fill out 200 240-something questionnaires and just think, I'm not sure what to do.
You can
I'll
do it
just
on
be
the phone.
cold this winter.
You don't have to do it online. It's not.
What? And so you expect government phone lines are so efficient, aren't they? Look at HMRC every January, you know, which gets completely blocked up. You think 800,000 vulnerable elderly people, some of whom may not even know how to negotiate this stuff. You think they're all going to get on the phone?
Their local MPs are there to help.
And the money won't come through.
Running a campaign in Ashford.
Well, I am actually doing that, Matthew.
No, I know. I thought you would.
I'm actually doing that for people to claim pension credit. But we go back to 2017 when the Labour Party's own report stated that if the winter fuel allowance was cut, it would lead to the deaths of 3,800 people. Yeah. What's the Keir Starmer going to say to these families now?
Look, I think what he's going to say is that the poorest pensioners are entitled to help. He's going to, you know...
Is there going to be deaths because of this?
I mean, I'm not an expert. I mean, I hope not. I hope that people who are struggling with their bills will seek help. And energy suppliers are also putting in place schemes to help. One of the biggest this week unveiled several £1 million to help its customers. And I know that other energy suppliers are going to follow suit.
When elderly people get cold, they get sick. And look at the state of the NHS.
Not only do they get sick, yeah, they do get sick, Emma, they're more likely to tumbles and falls and to end up in the local hospital.
They're not out in warm offices every day. They're not rushing around. They're not being driven around Westminster in
chauffeured cars. They're not being bought warm suits either.
They're not being bought warm suits and anything else. They're sitting in one room. There's a woman in the bottom of our building and she's sitting in one room and it's already getting cold. And Matthew talks about all these people are eligible for this, that and the other. That money may not arrive in time. And many elderly people will not go into debt. They're terrified of this.
Let me just play an impartial devil advocate again, Matthew. So just a few years back when Starmer was on TV banging on about a woman called Elsie or Beryl or something like that. This elderly lady who couldn't afford to have her heating on, that used to ride around on a bus all day just to keep warm. We're going to get a double whammy here, I think, Matthew. Not only has the winter fuel allowance been cut, but it also looks like that pensioners' free bus passes are going to be taken away in the budget next month. What's else are you going to do then?
Well, look, the government has always said it hasn't given a list of everything that will be in the budget, but it's made clear that
they're in the firing line again.
Will remain. So there is. I mean, my understanding is that there is no threat to the senior citizens bus pass in England. Obviously, in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, it's up to those governments.
Matthew, why are these vulnerable people in the firing line with this government? What have they got against vulnerable people?
The problem is, Emma, is that the
single-person discount is
the winter
also in the
fuel
firing
allowance
line.
was going to millionaires. The winter
no,
fuel
money
allowance...
is going to train drivers who are now earning £73,000 a year.
Well, they're not likely to be claiming their pension as their train drivers, but it was going to millionaire pensioners. And if you look at the facts, pensioner poverty has halved in the last 25 years, thanks to things like the pensioners' credit, which Gordon Brown introduced, whereas fuel poverty amongst the working age population has remained exactly the same. Hard choices. It's not an easy choice to make, but sadly, because of the mess the Tories left us, Labour's had to...
Emma, has Matthew persuaded you that you're on the wrong side of the argument here?
No, absolutely not. I know I'm on the right side, and the rest of the country knows that we're on the right side of this argument because we care about vulnerable people.
Matthew, final word.
It's a tough choice, and I'd encourage, but it necessarily one because of the mess. And I'd encourage anybody watching the programme who's worried about their heating bill to seek extra help, apply for pension credit, and look to your energy supplier to get the extra help you need.
Well, there you go. That's Matthew Larser and Emma Wolf. But coming up next, we're going back in the day with Ingrid Tarrant.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
70% of population will make a judgment on someone just by looking at them. And within 2-3 seconds, we make a decision if we like someone or not.
Really? Is it that quick?
So it's actually very, very fast. So before we have a chance to kind of express what we want to say, our subconscious mind is kind of looking for clues. So you look at someone and you look at their, for example, I don't know, the watch they're wearing, maybe the makeup. I spent literally my whole childhood learning, being absolutely mesmerized by my mom's ability to choose different style of clothing for different style personalities. British definitely take a pride in their appearance. They do spend time to look good. There is a lot of amazing British designers. For me, it was always about that feeling that I've learned from my mom's shop, how the people were living, buying certain things. And I was like, oh my God, they look happy. They've got this big smile on their face. My main objective always was to make people feel good. So now as a stylist, I help them to go through style therapy. I help them to discover colors that are good for their colors that they wear them close to their face, but also it sets the tone for their wardrobe. And then we look at the outfit formula. So it's, yeah. When I look at Ellie's dress sense, I was just thinking, okay, she likes to be polished.
I do like to be polished.
Exactly. Elegant. Timeless. I look at the reference to the dress you're wearing today. It's that kind of Chanel black and white, timeless, never go out of fashion. So for me, it's about, it's not the trends, but how you would like your personal style to be and how timeless it can be.
GB News, the People's Channel. Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World, and I'm delighted to be joined by TV personality Ingrid Tarrant. Thanks for coming on my show. It's been a long time since I've seen you, actually.
Yes.
Ingrid, a while ago.
I know, I watched you speaking and you were brilliant.
You've had a very colourful career, been a massive TV personality. What sort of got you into TV?
Oh, if you really want to know.
Yeah, I do.
So actually, I trained, when I grew up as a young child, I wanted to be either a fashion designer or a journalist.
Yeah.
And I did do and qualified as a fashion designer. I did a course. But then I worked for a company, and the company, well, I bought the company. It was a bit of a Victor Kiam moment.
All right.
But I didn't have any money, basically. So very kindly, the boss let me work for him in a payoff for the various things. I'm making it very brief, and it's probably not making a huge amount of sense.
No, I get it.
But in order to finance the designs that I was doing and executing the orders that I had taken, I needed to have extra income as well. And so I went and joined an employment agency that was in media, because, as I said, the only two things I was really interested in was fashion and journalism. Yeah. And I ended up getting a job at ITN.
So you didn't put all your eggs in one basket then?
No, I never do.
Yeah.
I've got lots of eggs in other baskets even now, just in case everything goes sort of like, whoop.
Yes, I know one of your great passions, Ingrid, is animals and animal welfare. I know you've got a few pets, and you spoke to me earlier about a cat. I think you was a little bit confused about the sex of the cat when you first... Tell me about that.
Oh, yes. Well, so I arrived in Manila, in the Philippines, and heard this scream. Well, actually, it was one of my daughters, and she said, "Oh, Mum, listen to that baby crying." And I said, "It's not a baby crying, it's a cat." And eventually found this little kitten, tiny, 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 eyes glued shut like this, screaming its little head off. And I limboed under this chain.
Limboed?
Yeah, I do limbo.
Great word.
Yeah. Under this chain, and I picked up this little kitten. But it was heaving. We were outside the airport. You're not actually allowed in, as I discovered, unless you have a ticket to fly. Anyway, I thought, I've got to get this little kitten some help. It really probably would have only lasted another couple of days. But more importantly, to sort of get the eyes unglued. So I went in to go to the ladies' loo. I could see that there was one, a huge one, because they had not a huge loo, but they had huge glass windows, so you could see right through. But I was stopped from going in because I didn't have the ticket. And I pleaded with them. I said, please, please, this little kitten, it's going to die if I don't get it hydrated and whatever. Anyway, I had an armed escort to take me into the ladies' loo, yes, and bathe these eyes with warm water. And suddenly, boom, like this, and go, oh, oh, hello, like this. And then got some water from the little cafe and bits and pieces. Anyway, so that was it. Mine. From the minute I arrived in the Philippines, came everywhere. Boats, tuk-tuks, bicycles, cars, everywhere. And then I eventually called her, thought it was, a him.
Yeah.
Called him Philip.
Yeah.
Philip from the Philippines, after King Philip. And it was only when, during the quarantine stage and then having to have him castrated, we thought. Yeah. But it then turned out to be a girl, so it was like, well, it's okay. So Philip becomes Philippa.
A little bit of feline transitioning there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Happens all the time.
Happens all the time. These things happen to me all the time.
But you have got a great passion for animal welfare and safety. And I know that you go on these demonstrations.
Yeah.
Are you one of these, like, hippies that go out and block the roads off and cause mayhem?
Oh, gosh, no. No. I'm not that. I'm more for my body, my right. So I'm not PETA, sort of the animal rights things. They've got it wrong. Everybody assumes that because I've had so many pets, so I've had chickens and pet pigs, they're fabulous. I'm getting 3 more.
Where do you keep these pigs?
Well, I keep them at home, and they come into the home. It's terribly sweet. They come into my office sometimes when I'm working because they love company. Yeah. One used to sleep indoors, and the other 2 were in a little pig ark outside, and then they have the whole freedom of the house and the garden. They're amazing, amazing pets. But everybody assumes that I'd be vegetarian. But I'm not. Yeah. And in fact...
Is that a dilemma for you?
Not at all. And, and people say, well, you won't eat bacon, with the pigs. And I went, of course I do. And in actual fact, I relish in the fact that when I'm frying bacon and the pigs come along, I go, oh, I'm eating one of your relatives.
Oh, dear.
No, it's not.
Would a pig eat bacon, do you think?
Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, they have. They've stolen the builders' sandwiches. They've got ham sandwiches and stuff, yeah.
See, I always struggle with that one. I tell people, anybody that likes to listen to me, I'm a meat eater, always have been. But as I get older, I'm starting to think about where the food's come from. And then I start getting these, like...
What, do you see them? Do you see the eyes, the ears? And...
especially when a lorry drives by on a motorway
road. Oh, no, that's horrible.
And you see the cows, like, sticking their heads or anything.
No, that's awful.
Well, I know where you're going. And they probably do as well. And so I getting these sort of vegetarian feelings as well, but they're quickly dismissed when I get a whiff of bacon.
Yeah. Do you know, I think that bacon is the hardest thing for anybody to give up, isn't it? Or a sausage.
Well, I think most veggies say that. It's that smell of bacon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very special.
So what's your big mission at the moment? What's your big project?
I haven't got really sort of a project in mind, but I've got a very personal sort of ambition. Sort of it's not a career move or anything, and that's to travel the stans. I want to do all the stans.
What's that for the average viewer?
Okay, so Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kurdistan.
There's another star there.
There's a couple more. Yes.
And is that like is it like a backpacking? Is it travelling on?
Oh, I love backpacking. I love that. But I used to do that up until not so long ago. But my friends have kind of gone more to they like the more 5-star luxury and the fluffy hotel,
sort of.
Thingies, towels and whatever. But I went backpacking with my son, my youngest son, when he took a post-uni gap year. And I said to him, look, nobody wants to go backpacking with me, but here's the deal.
Did you feel safe?
Totally. Yeah. I've never felt... I don't feel danger. My mother always used to worry. She said, you don't sense danger. I'm frightened you'll get killed. And I said, well, I think that people... It's a bit like a dog. If they sense that you're frightened, they're more likely to bite you. But if... Anyway, I hope I'm right in thinking that. But, no, I said to my son, here's the deal. If I'll pay for you to go to these various places and I'll pick the itinerary, if I can come with you. So you have to have your mum. So it's a good enough deal. It was fantastic. Yeah. Really fantastic. Yeah, I love trekking, backpacking.
There you go. Ingrid, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, so
lovely to see you again.
Oh, well, it's lovely to see you, yeah.
Enjoying ourselves, weren't we?
Weren't we? We've got
that's Ingrid Tarrant. Coming up next, it's a corker. It's right versus left.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow's weather patterns similar to today's. Much of the north dry. In the south, again, we need to watch out for some thunderstorms developing. We've seen a few today. Low pressure is heading up from the south. High pressure dominating to the north of Scotland, bringing, as I said, much of northern Britain a dry day today and a dry and a fine night. Having said that, the cloud is thick enough in the east for a little bit of drizzle here and there. In the south, we've seen some big downpours today. They are going to fade through this evening, but later in the night we could start to see a few more heavy showers coming in. It will be quite a mild night in the south, but with clear skies in parts of Scotland, temperatures will be well down into single digits. Again, though, western Scotland having a cracking day, if you like, September sunshine. Meanwhile, in the south, we have another thunderstorm warning. Not everywhere in this large warning area will see downpours, but where they do occur, like today, they could cause some issues. Potentially some flooding. There's going to be lots of lightning and large hailstones as well. Eastern Scotland, northeast England likely to stay fairly glum. A bit of drizzle is possible along the coast and over the hills, but generally staying dry, and certainly plenty of sunshine once more in western Scotland. There will be some sunshine further south as well. The hit and miss nature of those thunderstorms, though, that's why we've got the warning in place. They could cause some disruption. Certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the road, so bear that in mind. Parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England, most susceptible, but some heavy showers across eastern England too. In the sunny spells, it'll feel quite warm, mid-20s possibly, 20 or 21 in western Scotland, but where it stays glum on the east coast, it will be cool, and that cloud is back again on Sunday, and the heavy showers across the south as well. We have another yellow Met Office warning in place for Sunday, covering large parts of England and Wales for wet weather. With the thunderstorms today and tomorrow, that extra rain could cause some further disruption. The warnings are available on the Met Office website.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the truth, available at gbnews.com.
I'm delighted to welcome back Emma and Matthew. This is Right versus Left, and we're going to talk about conference season. It's conference season, as you know, and the question is, are the main parties in touch with their electorate and their members? But before we go to that, we're just going to look at this clip of the Lib Dem conference. Look at this.
My first in line, your gas is free. Take a chance on me. Leave me, let me go, wanna be around. You got no place to go if you leave that. Hello, friends. Thank you so much for that kind welcome.
Right, guys, you've seen that. Ed Davey in full swing, singing, enjoying himself. What do you think of that, Emma?
No, he has ruined ABBA for me forever.
Did Theresa May not do that when she came on to Dancing Queen?
Yes, actually she did.
Yeah.
But I have a soft spot for ABBA. I kind of admire Ed Davey. He does some good work, but also he is game for a laugh. I mean, he did some ridiculous things during the general election campaign. But as for being a serious politician, I kind of doubt it.
Matthew, could you sing like that? Hopefully not.
Well, no. I mean, my golden rule is never sing and never eat in public if the camera's near there, because I was known as the man brought in to make sure Ed Miliband never ate another bacon sandwich. So, if I was an advisor, I mean, I think I won't be if I wouldn't be advising Keir at the Labour conference to take to the karaoke.
Okay, so let's get back to the main point, guys. Conference season, obviously, it's well underway. Have the main parties lost touch with their grassroots support, their members and their voters?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, Lee, but one of the issues is that members and voters are often some distance apart on quite a lot of issues. So, I mean, what you need to do as a leader is to try and bring your membership with you, but be where the voters are, because ultimately the voters matter more than party members. Now, if you're not keeping the voters happy, then you're not going to bring your party members along with you. I think the issue for the Labour Party is keeping the balance between what the members want, which is probably more radical change, although the membership has changed a lot since the days of Corbyn and is more reasonable now, and what voters want. I mean, you know, we've seen when we were discussing earlier about the winter fuel allowance, there are tough decisions that have to be made, and people are going to be disappointed when everything they want more money to go for isn't going to get more money. So it's going to be tough ahead. But just as the Lib Dems are celebrating in Ed's case...
Before Matthew mentions once again, Emma, that I used to be a member of the Labour Party.
I wasn't this time going to mention it, Lee.
What I used to find I was astounded that the membership were nothing like the Labour voters at all.
Have the parties lost touch with with their members, with their voters? Well, look at the record low turnout at the general election. That suggests to me that the general population and voters didn't vote and are absolutely fed up with politicians. Conferences, I think, very much are for members. They're not for voters. The average man on the street is not going to be tuning in, apart from your speech, of course. The average man on the street, woman on the street, is not going to be tuning in to watch the big speeches at the conference. It's very much about drinks and schmoozing. I would also say the Labour Party conference this year, from the 22nd, is going to be overtaken by the scandal and the sleaze and a lot of anger within the party at how they're being portrayed out there on the streets and the headlines. They're going to be angry with their leaders. The Conservative Party conference is it's a bit odd because they have a lame duck leader at the moment. They still have Rishi Sunak. They don't have an elected leader yet. So I think, no, the conferences don't connect with the average
It's interesting because, you know, Matthew, you've been to a few conferences. I've been to a few.
You could say that.
And, you know, as a Conservative MP, it got...
You've been to different parties' conferences.
No, I haven't. I never went to the Labour conference.
Okay. It's just a lot of drinking and staying up late, isn't it?
But when you actually walk to the venue, which I have done many occasions, we always get demonstrators at these conferences. It's a bit like running the gauntlet, as I said before. It can be a little bit scary. But the interesting thing is, Matthew, at the Conservative conference, we've got loads of lefties there and the socialist worker, who, by the way, have never done a day's work in their life. And sometimes at the Labour conference, we still get the same sort of crowd.
Absolutely.
That far to the left, they'll never be happy.
Yeah, no, I remember a Labour conference in Bournemouth in the early days of the Blair government, where you had, as you say, socialist workers and people on the hard left, but it was also at the time of the hunting ban, and you had a lot of Countryside Alliance protesters, and so that was quite a scary conference because you were kind of getting it from all angles. I mean, the conferences are a weird thing. One of the reasons they go ahead is because they're huge money makers for the parties. They're one of their big fundraising opportunities for all the parties. The Lib Dems were boasting last week about how much they made for the first time since they were in government, because they obviously got such a large number of MPs, businesses suddenly interested. So it is very difficult, as Emma says. You need to be, you know, when you're preparing your conference speech as the leader, you need to talk to the country as well as the people in the hall. But you've got to do enough to get the buzz going in the hall, because otherwise the country picks up on that. So it's a very fine line.
And of course, you're going to get protesters and activists and things around the venue in Bournemouth or Brighton or Liverpool or wherever it happens to be. But it doesn't go wider than that. The average people, the average sort of member of the public is not saying right now, oh, it's the conference season starting, you know, on the 22nd or starting on the 29th or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, the security is crazy. People don't realise that it has full airline-style security once you're in government. My mum once nearly got her mini bottle of Chanel No. 5 confiscated when she got into the Labour Party conference. So you can feel quite isolated from what's going on around you because of the level of security.
Isn't it just a jolly? Isn't it like a sort of, it's like at a company?
Well, it isn't. I mean, it's a thank you to the members. The members have fun, but also, I mean, in Labour terms, there are actual serious votes, and you know,
I think what it is, guys,
and they do decide things.
I think what it is, I've never been to the only time I've been to conference is as a member of Parliament, and I mean, the vibe, the feeling you get is that the members go because they want to meet the MPs. They want to sit there, want to have a drink with them, want to chat to them, have a photo with them. So I think it's really important that as many MPs as possible from each political party go and just say thank you.
Of course, absolutely. But how are members and MPs going to be feeling at the Labour Party conference this year?
Well, I think they're going to be happy.
They're going to be happy about the first 10 weeks they've had.
They're going to understand that it's difficult decisions have to be made, but they're going to be celebrating the victory as the Lib Dems. I think you're absolutely right. It is an opportunity for members to talk to not just their local MP, but say they're particularly interested in animal welfare or in international development or in defence. They can talk to the people who are making the decisions, and that's really important in all the parties for keeping in touch with the grassroots.
Is there going to be some angry members at this year's conferences, do you think, especially with the Labour Party?
I think there's going to be a lot of anger because they are having, as a proper constituent CMP, you know how hard it is going out on the streets, running the gauntlet probably every weekend, walking through your town centre and trying to defend things. I mean, you don't, but trying to defend things like the winter fuel payments. There's so much anger on the streets. I don't know how MPs are able to defend that. Well, we know over 50 of them abstained because they couldn't really stand up and vote for it because they were chicken. They didn't want to go back to their constituents and say, yeah, by the way, I voted to take £300 off your granny, off your mum, off you.
Well, including off millionaire pensioners.
That is tough for MPs.
I think there will be certainly behind the scenes there'll be a sense that that things have to be defendable. But I also think that there'll be a real sense of excitement that we've got Labour's back in power and that they've got 4.5 years of a government to go.
Okay, then, Matthew. Okay, so next week we've got next week we've got the Labour Party conference. What sort of reception do you think Sir Keir's going to get?
Oh, I think he's going to get a really strong reception. Yes, he will in the room, but what he needs to do for the country is, I think, the key thing for his message for the country, and actually it would also help boost spirits of the members in the room, is some optimism. I think he's quite rightly been criticised for a sort of lack of a sense of joy, a lack of a sense of an optimistic vision. It's all kind of do a Keir. I think that ultimately is the biggest thing that could be a worry.
Emma's shaking her head.
I am, because I don't care about this. Oh, where's the optimism? Well, then don't do depressing, terrible things. You're right. The first 11...
It's such a mess from the Tories, then. We've got to sort it out.
The first 11 weeks, they should have been an absolute celebration.
Right,
finally
guys.
in power after all this time.
Before...
and look at the first 11 weeks, and it's been a car crash. And I think
before Matthew bangs on about 14 years of Tory rule, we're going to go to the yes or no quiz. It's quite simple. You know the rules. You nearly won.
We're veterans.
Veterans. Emma nearly won the other week.
I nearly did. But then you shimmied the
No, I didn't. No. You was outwitted by the ever so popular Matthew Stadlen. Not. Anyway, question number 1 to you, Emma. Is Sir Keir Starmer the UK's #1 scrounger?
Yes.
Matthew?
No.
Number 2, Matthew. Does Parliament truly represent the UK?
Yes.
No.
That was a long yes. I could have.
That'll be my one that I'm going to qualify.
Okay. Emma, will taxes rise in next month's budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. Shocking admission.
But not on working people.
Okay. Number 4, Matthew. Has the ULEZ expansion scheme in London been a success?
Yes.
No.
Ooh. Number 5, Emma. Should MPs accept free gifts?
No.
Yes, in certain circumstances.
You had one job, didn't you?
Yeah, and I
failed. You had one job, it's fair. It's official. Matthew Larser is a failure, again. But most people know that.
Might even call him a loser.
A loser, a failure. Anything else? No?
No, at least I'm not the granny snatcher or whatever it is.
But it is great at serving drinks, isn't it?
Beaten.
Yeah. Anyway, 5 to Emma.
Thank you.
Do we get to justify one?
Yeah.
5 out of 5.
Emma, do you want to do yours first?
Yeah, what was the 4th question?
It was, has the ULEZ expansion scheme been a success?
I wanted to qualify that. It's been a great success for Sadiq Khan. It's been a financial rip-roaring success. They've taken millions in fines. They've taken millions in the money that they take anyway for people that pay their ULEZ. But no, for Londoners, it's been an absolute disaster. It's a hated scheme.
And I want to justify my long yes on does Parliament represent Britain? I think it does in many ways, but I think one thing that you and I will agree on is there aren't enough people with working class backgrounds in Parliament, and I think that all parties need to do more on that, as we've seen diversity in other ways, but let's see more working class voices.
There you go. That is the yes/no quiz. Sorry, Matthew, failure.
Next time.
Emma, that's great. Well done. 5-4.
Happy to accept my trophy.
But coming up next, we've got comedian Paul Cox on Last Orders.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Many happy memories, and 9 in 10 Brits say certain foods evoke feelings of childhood nostalgia, with the mousse-like powdered dessert, Angel Delight, the most Loved. Joining us now.
Surprised by that.
Yeah. What, Angel Delight?
I'm surprised it's number one. Yes, very surprised. Well, to talk us through all of this is creator of the Crazy Sexy Food podcast, Hannah Harley-Young. Morning.
Hi. I've brought a selection of things that really define my childhood, particularly the Viennetta ice cream. And I have brought you some butterscotch Angel Delight.
Yay!
I'm going to expose myself live on camera and say that I've never tried Angel Delight.
Hannah?
I know. I don't know what that says about me.
I thought that was apple puree, actually. I'm so excited. Is it good? Here we
Oh,
go.
my goodness.
Did I make it okay?
Oh, yeah. But to be fair, Hannah, it's not that hard to make.
Well,
Let's
what
go through
is it, though? That's what's so funny about Angel Delight. It's
chemicals. It's just chemicals in a bag.
I mean, it's a load of additives, which, I mean, one thing that's also really interesting about all these nostalgic foods when you look at them is that a lot of things have been discontinued over the years.
Oh, dear.
So it makes you wonder, how did this one kind of get through the cracks?
Angel Delight came out number one, didn't it?
It did come out as number one. And also sort of in the top 5 was fish and chips, something I still eat today. Fish fingers, still a staple of my diet. Mr. Whippy, in that same survey, they said that 95% of people find that a taste from their childhood will take them back more than looking at a photo. And that's something that's really interesting for me, and it's the basis of everything that I do, and the reason really why I set up Crazy Sexy Food, or one of the reasons, should I say, was that I love this concept of memories of food. You know, I've interviewed hundreds of people over the past 5 years, and when I get to that question, you actually see their face relaxing, and there's something that it evokes emotion.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, that's Last Orders at the Bar, and I'm joined by top British comedian Paul Cox.
Hey, Lee, how you doing?
Well known for his razor-sharp wit. Is that right?
Well, that's true.
Well, you wrote it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. That's on my website.
Down there on my notes.
Best known, actually, for being the People's Gammon from Headliners. Well,
a gammon?
Yes, I know. But I was called a gammon by people on Twitter, so I said, I'm not just the gammon.
Do you know what a gammon is?
And the People's... Well, it's just... Isn't it just a white middle-aged man who's frustrated with life not being as traditional as it
And
once
who's
was?
carrying a few extra pounds, like
exactly.
our good selves.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I've embraced it, though, Lee.
So before the 2019 election, somebody were putting pictures on the old Tinternet with me, well, just my face, on a big joint of gammon. That's one of the kindest things that anybody's ever done.
Delicious, is what I would say.
I like gammon. Pink.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Pink meat, salty.
I don't understand why it's an insult. I know they think it's an insult.
Gammon is a very popular meat, so I would take that as a compliment.
Delicious.
Listen, comedy. What got you into comedy?
So I was working in London about 10 or so years ago, and I've always wanted to be into comedy. And I went and did something called a stand-up comedy course at something called the Comedy School in Camden. And basically that introduced me to writing and performing. And then I went and did open mic comedy in London, which was like harrowing. But because it was so bad and I enjoyed it, I just knew it was for me. And when I say it was so bad, I was doing OK. But you try going to an open mic comedy night where the only people there are the people that run it, and the other comedians that have no interest in you whatsoever.
So what was it like the very first time you went onto stage?
Well, I was quite lucky actually. So we did like a performance at the end of the comedy school thing, which was 6 weeks long, and we did it at the Backyard Club, the Hurst Backyard Club in Bethnal Green.
Yeah.
And there's about 100 people there, and it was a really supportive environment, and I did really well.
Yeah.
And I'm walking home from that thinking it's just a matter of time now.
Buzzing.
Just buzzingly. And I thought it's just a matter of time now. I'll have my own sitcom. I'll be writing for whoever the big name is of today.
Yeah.
And then just one night later did an open mic at something called the Lion's Den in off Shaftesbury Avenue.
Wasn't a Lion's Den.
I paid £5 to perform for 5 minutes and died on my rear.
I suppose it's about knowing your audience as well. Isn't it?
It is. There wasn't really an audience, and that was half the problem. But do you know what? Just the experience alone for me was enough. I really knew that it was for me.
See, I've met a few comedians, in my line of work. Jim Davidson, Bobby Davro, great comedians.
Yeah.
I mean, Bobby was like a clown, really, but his impressions and everything was just bang on. They've been around, doing the circuit for donkey's years, haven't they? And I guess, I spoke to some comedians who've been up to my neck of the woods before, and they say it's a little bit different the further north you go. I think sometimes are the audiences harder to please?
No, I don't say they were harder to please, actually. My comedy, my stand-up comedy, I host a lot of shows now, run my own clubs, but my stand-up comedy is observational and about coming from a working class background, like yourself, Lee, but now existing in what's quite a middle class environment, media, that sort of stuff, and just the difference between the two. And I find the further north you go, the more they understand me. If what the difficult places for me are London and Birmingham and Brighton and the places where there is a more progressive audience.
I think audiences, you're right, actually. I think the audiences in the North and Midlands, whatever, a little bit more forgiving, still get it. Still, I did a post on social media last week, I think it was, about the old postcard humour, the saucy postcards from Skegness and Blackpool.
Ronnie Barker was a big fan of all that.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, we used to look at them in the shop and giggle and think, we didn't get it half the time, but absolutely hilarious. Imagine that now, one of them postcards, drop it in the sorting office of some woke official would probably be off work for 6 months now with anxiety.
Probably longer than 6 months. There'd be some sort of PTSD and there would be tablets for some time. But look, the thing about comedy is it's never what makes people laugh really hasn't changed that much. People have been programmed a different way, and there are sensibilities that they feel that they should. In any comedy club, what you do is you make the stage well lit and the audience not well lit. And the reason you do that is because it allows the audience to laugh at anything they find funny. If you have the audience lit, they'll have a look around, particularly if they're with colleagues or friends or family they're worried about, and they won't laugh. But you make it dark. And they still find the same things funny. That's why Only Fools and Horses still runs every day.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because a few weeks back I went to watch Jim Davidson, who's a friend of mine, went to watch him in Skegness, a few of us, and I sat at the front. And obviously, there's quite a few people in there that knew who I was and my colleague Richard, because Jim Davis had told them we were sat there. So he's telling some jokes, and the jokes, and some of them a bit. And I'm laughing, but thinking at the same time, who's watching me now? Because this will be in the paper tomorrow, it'll be on social media. But you know what, Paul? We left that place laughing. Our ribs hurt. I drove home that night while my mate drove me home. I put a bit of Jeffro on the CD. We listened to that as well. Again, a bit risky. Nobody was hurt. We laughed and had a good time. And it was absolutely brilliant.
Well, it's a very good point. No one tells you what music you can and can't listen to.
That's true.
No one should tell you what comedy you should and shouldn't find funny. It's innate within you anyway. Whether you want other people to know or not, you are going to laugh at it. The idea that people can preside over somebody's sense of humour and tell them what's funny and what's not, to me, is utterly ridiculous. And I think it smacks of the position we find ourselves in now, particularly under Keir Starmer's Labour Party, where I think more and more, particularly with social media, they're going to clamp down and we won't be able to talk about X, Y and Z. And if you let humour go, we're knackered, basically.
Well, actually, another comedian a few weeks back, actually, his whole act, half of his act was an elderly lady on the front row, and he just pestered her for the full hour. But she was game, she was up for it. He sort of knew that, and it was absolutely brilliant. But anyway, talking about comedy, we'll have a laugh now. Pint Pot, my friend.
Yes, please.
The old Foster's tap, which is that one. So this is on the pull. You've got 30 seconds. Oh, you've got the tilt right already, haven't you? You've done this before, haven't you?
I'm a working class man, Lee.
30 seconds to pull the perfect pint.
OK, let's give it a go, shall we?
How do you deal with hecklers?
Oh, I love hecklers. Like I say, I host a lot of shows. And I think it's about the confidence of the performer. So heckling, what you need to understand is that... why have I pulled it?
Put that on.
I tell you what.
No, get it on the bar, mate. Come on.
This is
that working class background you spoke about. Stick it on there, mate.
People's gammon.
I tell you what, mate.
Has let the people down. Look at the state of that.
If you went into a working man's club in the
I wouldn't be allowed back again.
You'd probably get
I'd just like to apologise to my family and all my working class roots. But yeah, hecklers, I mean, what you have to understand is actually if you're any good and you're portraying enough confidence, most of the audience are on your side anyway.
Yeah, they want to laugh, don't they?
Because they want a good time. You don't go, you won't hammer straight into them and make them feel ridiculous. If they're particularly annoying, you might speak to someone next to them and say, is this idiot with you? And then all of a sudden they get embarrassed and get him to shut up. But heckling's part of comedy. Heckling's part of politics, Lee.
Yeah, so, most people think they'll see a good comedian. I've been to Benidorm many, many times, some great comedians in Benidorm. And they get up for, 35, 45 minutes, make you laugh. How do they remember all those jokes and all that script, if you like? Yeah, you do. Particularly, I mean, I guess I'm not revealing any secrets here, particularly if you're going to watch a comedian at a club and they're doing 20, 30 minutes or whatever, there's a good chance that 80, 90% of that is already pre-programmed. They've done it all around the country. They know exactly what they're going to do. And they may make adjustments for the audience. So they might start telling a story or whatever and think, well, it's not going so well, and take another route. But I would say a good 80, 90% is prescripted. And you just learn it. So how long into a performance do you normally look to make somebody laugh or the audience laugh?
Well, you really want to do that immediately. Yeah. But you'll definitely place routines that you know are strong. You're supposed to open with your best joke and close with your best joke, really. Yeah. But you have to be careful because it depends on where you are on the bill. If you're right at the top of the front of the show where people are just settling in, maybe only have one beer, you've maybe got to ease them in. This is where the host, the MC, does all the good work. Yeah. Because they're setting the scene, they're setting the room up, getting the audience ready. So open with your best, close with your best, but, just hope they last.
Well, you're not close with your best tonight, have you, mate? Look at
the state of that.
Absolutely rubbish. And
do you know what? The whole thing. It's been an honour meeting you, Lee. But the whole time here, I was thinking, I better get that right, and I didn't.
You didn't. You failed. You had one job. A bit like a Sana producer. He had one job, but he got it right tonight on ringing the bell. We'll give you 6 out of 10.
I'll take that, Lee.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, I'll get to see you perform sometime.
Yeah. Thanks, Lee.
That's Paul Cox on the Pole. Thanks for watching Lee Anderson's Real World with me, Lee Anderson. Coming up next, we've got Friday Night Live with the brilliant Mark Dolan.
Thank you, Lee. Well, we'll pick up the baton at 8 o'clock with a very busy show. Unless you've been living under a rock, you'll be aware that it is the Reform UK annual conference, and Nigel Farage has given a fascinating interview with our political editor, so you'll get the first airing of that, the highlights from our brilliant Choppers interview with Nigel Farage in just a couple of minutes' time, in what was frankly one of the most honest interviews of Nigel Farage's career. Plus, could Reform replace Labour as our next government in 5 years' time, completely usurping the Conservatives? And what about Lee Anderson, who we've just been enjoying for the last hour? Did he speak for a nation when he tore up his licence fee letter at Reform UK Party conference? We'll get full reaction from my top pundits this evening. Plus, the serial criminal gifted £5 million from the taxpayers. Find out why in just a couple of minutes.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow's weather patterns similar to today's. Much of the north dry. In the south, again, we need to watch out for some thunderstorms developing. We've seen a few today. Low pressure is heading up from the south. High pressure dominating to the north of Scotland, bringing, as I said, much of northern Britain a dry day today and a dry and a fine night. Having said that, the cloud is thick enough in the east for a little bit of drizzle here and there. In the south, we've seen some big downpours today. They are going to fade through this evening, but later in the night we could start to see a few more heavy showers coming in. It will be quite a mild night in the south, but with clear skies in parts of Scotland, temperatures will be well down into single digits. Again, though, western Scotland having a cracking day, if you like, September sunshine. Meanwhile, in the south, we have another thunderstorm warning. Not everywhere in this large warning area will see downpours, but where they do occur, like today, they could cause some issues. Potentially some flooding. There's going to be lots of lightning and large hailstones as well.